Oh, hello, hello, hello. How are we? Happy Wednesday. I actually don't know if I'm live or not, but apparently I am. So I now do Wednesday shows. By the way, I don't do the Mondays. So you won't be treated to my face at the start of the week, which actually was a treat. But now you'll be treated to Curtis's face, which isn't that much of a treat. But joking, 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 joking. But I am joined by the wonderful Kevin Logan. Hey,
Hello, hello.
hello. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. I'm really happy to have you with me.
Oh,
I think it's gonna be a good show, and the title of your streams made me laugh. You told me what it was, and it's fucking hilarious. So we're gonna get into that today. Uh, but coming up on, gonna keep chatting because my producer said I need to keep chatting. But
well, I can tell you this, the name of the stream, which is "I'm the only white face you might see in Handsworth." So,
yes, I think Kevin might arguably be the only white face we see in Handsworth, apparently, according to Jen Rick. But we'll see. We'll see.
on Bobby J being racist for political ends, how dare you?
It's so unlike the Tories, isn't it? It's so unlike the Tories to be racist. Are you ready, Callum? Okay, sorry, I don't know what to do. I'm just looking like awkwardly into the camera, but it's because Callum, our producer, is doing something, and we're good to go. Sorry, I'm doing this like I actually work in TV. So coming up on tonight's show, Talk TV went full anti-Semitic on Zach Pelansky, Robert Jenrick's vile racist outburst, and Israel treated Flotilla activists worse because they were Jewish. As ever, though, do remember to like the stream, get commenting because we're going to come to them later, and share it out so that we can have people watching how incredible we are and how hard we work. But on to our first story. Over the weekend, Talk TV, that Murdoch side show for Britain's reactionaries, ran a segment supposedly exposing Green Party leader Zach Pelansky for, wait for it, changing his name. Let's have a look.
This is a guy changes his name, used to earn a living, conning women that he could enlarge their breasts through the power of hypnotism.
Callum, you're gonna have to tell me.
And is now ranting and raving about Nigel Farage wanting a one-party state, being a fascist. You heard that sort of almost comical avalanche of socialist left-wing cliches from him. I mean, as I say, I used to sort of have a bit of affection for the Green Party. I didn't agree with them, but I admired their commitment to their cause, and they only wanted to make the planet a better place. But they've been hijacked, haven't they, by some kind of ranting communist, as far as I can see.
Oh, absolutely. They've gone from animal welfare and windmills into absolute chaos, right? They are so far off the trajectory that I now argue that if you take their cross put your cross in the box of the Green Party these days, you're voting for the monster Raven Looney Party. Only this monster is very real and very much alive. The man is a supreme narcissist. He has emboldened, I would argue, some of the most evil elements of British political life. And I do not think the Green Party are a good force for sensible democratic participation.
Utterly insane. How is Darren Grimey saying that Polanski's reclaiming of his family name was smoke and mirrors and that he just wanted a catchy name? He even called him a narcissist, which I think is just some word that people throw out, but they don't actually know the true meaning of. But speaking of Grimes, those who live in glass houses should not throw stones. Um, Darren literally said, I changed my surname when I was 18. I ditched my father's surname. He left when I was 3 after being abusive to my mother and caring more about his booze than his boys. I took my grandmother's surname, who I remain incredibly close to. Okay? Not that it's any of your business. So it's okay for Darren Grimes to change his name, but not for Zach. Complete and utter clown. Now, for those who are unaware, Zach Pelansky was born David Paulden. His family had actually changed their surname to Paulden generations ago to escape anti-Semitism in Britain. As a teenager, Zach chose to reclaim his family's original Jewish name, Pelansky, out of pride in his identity. There's nothing secret about this. He's spoken about it openly. Yet, Talk TV ran a segment with the sensational teaser revealed Green Party leader Zach Pelansky was born David Paulden, as if they're uncovering a fraud. And then Kevin O'Sullivan derisively tweeted, "Why does this cartoon caricature call himself Zach Polanski when his name is actually David Paulden?" Question mark. And now the smear merchants have discovered Twitter, of course, and they're coming out and they're saying, "I kept seeing the name David Paulden bandied about, which led me to do a little search. A jet setting family, private school, and work as a quote unquote corporate trainer. Why the left's new poster boy Zach Polanski isn't the working class hero he'd have you believe." Which is classic, isn't it? The establishment the establishment can tolerate privilege when it serves empire. They just can't stand it when someone from within their own social strata defects, grows a conscience, and starts speaking out. It's the same old trick, delegitimize the politics by personalizing the target. If you can't refute what Polanski says about Israel, you smear his past, you drag his family, his school, his job, anything to avoid the point. Funny, isn't it? When a right wing pundit comes from privilege, they're a success story. When a leftist does it, they're apparently a fraud. And now look, a Jewish man reclaiming his roots is now being mocked by pundits who spend half their careers warning us that anti-Semitism is an existential threat. In an article from Rivka Brown from Novara, they state, "Much like during the Corbyn years, reading the news as a British Jew in recent weeks has been a strange experience. For while most of us continue living our lives unharmed, the media is frantically telling us that we are inhabiting a hellscape. Diaspora Jews are by this point well acquainted with an increase in anti-Semitic incidents in line with Israeli violence. Synagogues are graffitied, our schools are daubed with red paint, and Jews are yelled in the street. Yet, watching and reading the news is to receive the impression of an increase in anti Semitism, but of an existential threat to our existence in this country. Needless to say, the evidence behind the inflammatory headlines is patchy." So, to the right wing pundits of Talk TV, which is it? Is anti Semitism real and dangerous, or is it a punchline when the Jewish person in question criticizes Israel? Because that's the subtext here, isn't it? When Zach Polanski, sorry, can I start again? When Zach Polanski condemns Israel's massacre in Gaza, he's not the right kind of Jewish person. Suddenly, the media that performs endless moral outrage over anti Semitism can't even recognize it, staring back at them from their own teleprompter. This is what weaponized anti Semitism looks like: silence when it's directed at the left, hysteria when it can be used against the left. And that hypocrisy corrodes public trust and completely trivializes very real hatred, because anti Semitism is a problem, but it can't be treated as a partisan tool. Either it matters everywhere or it means nothing. So maybe the question isn't why did Zach Polanski change his name? It's why did Talk TV feel so comfortable dragging a Jewish man's heritage on national television? And why did the self appointed defenders of Jewish safety say nothing? Kevin, there's no question here, right? This is anti Semitic, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, it is anti Semitic, but it goes beyond just the anti Semitism of it. Clearly, the main reason that they're doing this is another point you alluded to, which was that he is on the left, right? They're okay with privileged people choosing different names if it suits them. For instance, there was a privileged man who became one of the most right wing chancellors of the Exchequer we've ever had, called George Osborne. That wasn't his name, though, of course. His real name was Gideon Osborne, but that sounded a bit too posh, and so they had to tone it down a little bit. And no one in the media ever thought this was some massive scoop that needed to be shown what a liar he was. To Talk TV, I know your journalistic standards are pathetically low, but revealed a massive scoop when it's the first line of his Wikipedia bio is not exactly like groundbreaking Pulitzer stuff, okay? This is not something he's ever hidden. This isn't something he's tried to hide or cover up in any way whatsoever. In fact, he's been outwardly proud of the fact that he has reclaimed his Jewish heritage. His name was Polanski, therefore he has reclaimed that. He has been the self-affirmed, proud Jewish man that people in certain circles, Zionist circles, pretend they actually want Jewish people to be. This is something that I think, in many respects, Zach Polanski should be very proud of. The attacks against him from people like Talk TV, and there was a smear campaign against him in the Daily Mail as well, over a slightly different topic, but whatever. It's the fact that they hate him. And he should be proud of being hated by those exact people, at least in part because the people he's trying to court to the Green Party side are the kind of people who absolutely lap that up. So it makes a lot of politics sense as well. Zach Polanski, I think it's sort of emblematic in the way in which Kevin O'Sullivan, by the way, hashtag not all Kevins, Kevin O'Sullivan on Talk TV there pointed out that back in the past he had a lot of time for the Green Party, back when they were an ineffective, basically useless campaign organisation that had no real attempt to, affect things politically on the national scale. Now they have a leader who has taken them from under 70,000 members to over 90,000 in the matter of about a month. They're about to top three figures in the not too distant future and very possibly become the third largest political party in the country. And given that the Labour Party is lying about how many people it has, it may become the second at some point in the not too distant future, I dare say. Now they are a real force in British politics who look like they're going to get into double figures in terms of a national election and in terms of an overall percentage of the vote, and very possibly climb above the Conservative Party in total number of seats. That's within the margin of error. This is why they're scared of Zach Polanski, because he's a genuine progressive with a genuine chance to change things against the status quo, and that's why they're attacking him. And it must be borne in mind that they are using the very anti-Semitism for which they have accused the left, which wasn't really true in most cases, to do so. Because they'll do literally anything they possibly can, including inventing things like maybe they'll call him a Czechoslovak spy next. Maybe they'll say he didn't kneel at the appropriate angle at the cenotaph. Rewarm some of the old classics they used against Jeremy Corbyn. Who knows?
Yeah, it's this ridiculous weaponization of it, isn't it? And the fact of the matter is that anti-Semitism is very, very real, and it is on the rise. Like, this is something that is real and it's affecting Jewish communities up and down the country. But I think what arguably makes anti-Semitism worse is when people like this have a platform and almost reduce it to a reactionary talking point on a ridiculous show like Talk TV, and that's what frustrates me.
Yeah, absolutely. The undermining of the seriousness of the
Mm.
accusation, and it should be a serious accusation because it's a very serious topic, as we saw, unfortunately, in Manchester in the very recent past. Um, Anti-Semitism is an enormous scourge and something that needs to be fought against constantly and stamped out with all the force that we possibly can.
Mm.
And in doing, part of the way in which we do that is by calling it out when it's a real thing, by undermining it, by using examples that are not anti-Semitic. Like, for instance, when they said, well, Jeremy Corbyn said the name Epstein slightly weird, therefore he's basically Hitler. People then laugh at the accusation of anti-Semitism. You have undermined one of the key verbal ways in which we attempt to try and defend Jewish communities from the bigotry that they face by trivializing and using that in ways that are completely inappropriate. You are
Mm.
betraying the very groups you are claiming to support by undermining the seriousness of the accusation of anti-Semitism.
You're so right. And that kind of ties in really nicely to my second question, because with the weaponization of anti-Semitism, especially against the left since Corbyn, which you rightfully pointed out, it means that it's kind of that sort of strategy has hollowed out the meaning of anti-Semitism and kind of turned it into some sort of loyalty test, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And we know, for instance, that basically this is the way in which Zionists have tried to, once again, conflate Jewishness with the State of Israel. If you are an anti-Zionist Jewish person like Zach Polanski, it's okay to be anti-Semitic against you. That's the
Mm.
message they fundamentally they have, and it's a story we'll get back to with the third story later on. But
Mm.
the way in which you can be the wrong kind of Jew is really a sickening thing that they've done. It's
Yeah.
a way in which they try and undermine and put pressure on Jewish people to essentially knuckle under. So even if they don't necessarily support the project of
Mm.
Zionism across the world, in various parts of the world in which Jewish people live, they'll essentially shut up. It's a way of silencing any kind of dissent from within the Jewish community
Yeah.
against Israel. It's a really disgusting piece of abusive, abusive abuse. For
And
one.
no, it is. It's policing, massively policing. And I think they do see, and you're right. This does actually show that Zach Polanski is a threat, politically, is a threat in terms of his popularity. This guy is doing everything that we've been calling for the Greens to do for a very long time, which is to get out there and talk to people and have that grit and have that fight and that oomph that the Greens don't have. Like, I think I've said that the Greens are arguably this tree hugging middle class party that don't represent us. But now I see Zach Polanski, and I do feel like he's a really great
Well,
representation
that's
of what we need in politics.
Well, that's what I mean with Kevin
Mm.
O'Sullivan. Back when
Yeah.
they were just like, essentially liberal hippies, for want of a better phrase. No offense to the Green Party of yesteryear, but that's essentially what they were. And I've been through this before, but environmentalism minus socialism is just gardening. It's
Yeah.
nothing. Okay? You
Accurate.
can't realistically solve the problems caused by capitalism with more greener capitalism. It doesn't really work. Back when they were that ineffective kind of tree hugging, let's all be nice, come by our, getting along with people type organization, they were absolutely toothless, and that's why Kevin Sullivan and his rabid ilk were absolutely fine, like sort of in a kind of very patronizing way, patting them on the head and saying, "That's nice. I appreciate your commitment to your cause. Now fuck off." Was basically the message they're giving to them. Whereas now they're genuinely afraid. They're scared because they see an actual threat to the
Yeah.
status quo, and that's what they're reacting against. Which, like I say, as much as it might be an unpleasant personal experience, given that he is being racially abused in the national press, Zach Polanski, in his quieter moments with himself, should be very proud of the fact that he has garnered such a strong reaction, which means he's having an impact.
Exactly. It means he's getting into the right places. I completely agree with you. I think we're going to unpack this in our third story. So I'll go on to our second story, but thank you, Kevin. Great analysis as ever. So on to our second story. Robert Jenrick, took a stroll through Birmingham, and apparently the first thing he did was start counting skin tones. He told the press that in 90 minutes in Handsworth, I didn't see another white face. And that he said proved Britain has a problem with integration. Let's have a listen, shall we?
I went to Handsworth in Birmingham the other day to do a video on litter, and it was absolutely appalling. It's as close as I've come to a slum in this country. But the other thing that I noticed there was that it was one of the worst integrated places that I've ever been to. In fact, in the hour and a half that I was filming with news there, I didn't see another white face. And that's not the kind of country I want to live in. I want to live in a country where people are properly integrated. It's not about the colour of your skin or your faith. Of course it isn't. But I want people to be living alongside each other, not parallel lives. That's not the right way we want to live as a country.
It feels like the only person who's not integrating is Jenrick. He's literally using the absence of white faces as a barometer for national decline. I don't know if that's a measurable thing or if that's even something that we can depend on. And then came Kemi. Kemi entered our screens, who could have condemned it, but decided not to.
It is a whole load of different communities. Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi, Afro-Caribbean, mixed race, white. They are all living together. It just happens that quite a lot of them have brown skins.
Well, yes, as do I. So I'm saying this very...
So what's the problem?
The problem is more about Birmingham as a whole. We've seen the election of sectarian MPs there.
Yes, no, but I'm specifically asking about the Handsworth one, because he was just saying he walked into that community and he was unnerved, he was discomforted by something.
He will have explained what it was he saw, and I don't want us to focus too much on those comments because they're out of context. We didn't hear the full conversation.
Well, hang on, he said he doesn't resolve from the comments
yes,
at all.
But that wasn't... He didn't just stand up and make those two statements.
No, but he's put them in context this morning in interviews, and he's comfortable with starting this debate. But it sounds to me, may I just make one point? It sounds to me a bit as though it's out of kilter with what you were saying on Sunday. I listened to your speech. You said, I am British, it's got nothing to do with the colour of my skin.
Correct.
He's there saying, actually, I find it a bit unnerving seeing all these people with the same skin colour.
No, I don't think that's what he was saying. I think what he was saying was about integration. We haven't heard the entire conversation. Those are two sentences, and what I'm saying is...
But there's lots of different communities that are integrated.
Gary, if I may, what I'm saying is that we need to make sure that the people in our country want to be here, are contributing here, and are having shared values. Birmingham has a problem. You look at who's been elected there. Sectarian MPs campaigning for airports.
Yes, you're talking about that. I'm talking about what he said, and I'm trying to bring it back to...
But the point I'm making is that it's all related.
Point.
It is not a separate point. That's where we disagree. It is not a separate point. He may have used a phrase which, out of context, does not explain that point well. I'm the leader of the party. I gave a speech about this. I am making the point. It doesn't matter what the colour of your skin is, but we do need to have shared British values.
Makes zero sense. Kemi, I do not understand you. I get more confused the more she comes on screen, the more she opens her mouth. I'm just like, who are you? And what are your values? Instead, she's saying Jenrick was just making an observation. She called it a factual statement. Apparently, it's perfectly fine to measure a community's worth by its whiteness, as long as you say you're being factual about it. In other words, counting brown or white faces isn't a policy. Integration is more complex than that. Yet, in practically the same breath, she defended Jenrick's choice of words as a factual description. Wild. What a weird one, Kemi. An odd and curious balancing act. She says judging by appearances is not the point, but also that Jenrick did nothing wrong by literally doing just that. You do the maths there. Well, let's think. Why the eagerness to defend Jenrick's controversial remarks? Well, look no further than the Conservative Party's right wing rival, Reform. At the very same Tory conference where Jenrick's comments stirred outrage, Nigel Farage's Reform was making headlines by poaching Tory members and councillors en masse. In fact, on the conference's third day, around 18 to 20 Conservative councillors defected to Reform. In one go, a humiliating blow to Kemi's party. Farage crowd the Conservative Party is dead as an effective opposition, welcoming defectors to their quote unquote natural home with Reform. And ironically, this is following a YouGov poll that found half of Tory members think that Kemi should not lead the party into the next election. So it makes it quite interesting. I think that it's against this backdrop that Kemi's scrambling to fortify her right flank. She follows all of this by painting Reform as not truly right-wing at all. In a series of interviews, she argued that Farage's party is basically posing as hardline conservatives whilst pushing big government spending. She says, Reform wants to increase welfare. Reform wants nationalisation. Those are not, quote unquote, conservative policies. The Tory leader even shrugged off the swarm of defections as a kind of cleansing. Losing turncoats to Reform, that's just shedding a lot of the baggage over the last 14 years. Pretty bold spin, effectively calling defectors fair weather Tories who weren't committed to true conservatism anyway. But it underscores how Kemi is drawing an ideological line in the sand. Her Conservatives will be the real party of the right, whilst Reform are cast as pretenders who want to spend more, tax more, and borrow more. So the question is, who wins when the so-called centre-right becomes indistinguishable from the far right, or supposedly far right, it claims to fear? Because in this context of contest, the only thing moving faster than Jenrick's mouth is the Overton window. Kevin, Kemi's argument essentially says, we're the true party of the right, not these populist imposters who want nationalisation, etc. Are the Tories trying to out-reform reform, or are they just collapsing into them?
Well, a little bit of both, in all honesty. The really galling aspect of all of this, I think, as a lifelong Brummie and a very proud person civically, is that my city is being used as a political football. They're trying to stir a racial divide in my city. In the case of Robert Jenrick, to basically unofficially start his leadership campaign, because Kemi can be gone in a month's time, and he's probably going to trigger that at some point in the future, I imagine. And Kemi is backing him up because she doesn't want him to be able to do so. She wants to essentially try and remain the leader of the party, even if it's nominal for the time being. It's genuinely pathetic. And in terms of the overall thing, I'm disgusted by Robert Jenrick's comments, not just because they're clearly racist, right? Because what has the colour of the skin of a person got to do with integration? Are these people less British based on the colour of their skin? Because, for instance, if he'd bumped into one of the Ukrainian refugees who had moved to Britain in the recent past, he would see a white person and instantly think that they were somehow more British than the black guy whose grandparents were born here and parents were born here and he was born here. Somehow. Like he says in the thing, it's not about your colour of skin. Well, why did you mention it then, mate?
Exactly.
What was the relevance of it exactly? Why did you bring that up as if that was something that was relevant? And also, it's particularly galling to hear this man come up from London, this member of the private school mafia, doing his weird, sneering, racist, poverty safari hunt nonsense. He says in the thing, I was here for an hour and a half. Well, maybe if you spent any more than an hour and a half in the entire city, you might learn something about the place if you gave a shit about us. And you clearly don't. And that's sort of the problem that the Tories have always had in cities like mine, is that they don't care. They don't want to care. They don't want to know about the place. They just want to use it as a political football. Genuinely disgusting. The temerity of this piece of garbage to suggest that Handsworth is a slum. Now, Handsworth is a part of the city that I know very well. My grandma used to live on the Lozells Road, literally right there in the place. I grew up playing football and cricket with black kids and brown kids and all kinds of different people in Handsworth Park on the weekends. Right, it was an amazing place. I've got a lot of fun memories of the place, and I've still got family there. I go there pretty regularly, and there's no doubt that, statistically speaking, he is correct that the majority of people who live there are not white. It's about 10% white people live in the area, according to the last census, right?
Mm.
It is possible for him to have spent an hour and a half there and not seen a white face, but it's how you approach that fact. I, growing up, was fascinated by seeing people with turbans and rastas and white people and people from India and Bangladesh and all over the world. It was a genuine melting pot. I loved it. For me, it was a fantastic experience. I found it a genuinely enriching thing to be around these various types of people rather than a boring, homogenous lump, which by no means is Handsworth that. Handsworth is many things, mostly non-white, but it is not one group of people. It is not a ghetto. There are people from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, all kinds of parts of the Caribbean, parts of Africa now. And we've seen immigrants from the likes of Ukraine and Poland and various parts of Eastern Europe as well now moving in there. It is a genuine melting pot. When he says integration, he just means whiteness.
Mm.
Being a racist, he is chasing the votes of fascists. Beyond under no illusion on this one, okay? And in terms of it being a slum, right? It is undeniably an economically underserved area. It is a
Mm.
very poor part of the city. And we need to look at precisely why that might be, right? It's the policies put forward by the likes of Robert Jenrick over the last 14 years. It's the massive austerity that the Tories have enforced. It's the huge slashing of council budgets, which means that the upkeep of the area is basically nil. It means now that the council can't even pick up the bloody bins, for Christ's sake. We've got a rat problem everywhere. You've got the shutting down of local youth centres, the shutting down of Sure Start centres, the shutting down of libraries, the shutting down of post offices. Literally everything that can make a community, the Tories have destroyed, up to and including the traditional industries which allowed the economic upward mobility of previous migrant communities in those areas. Because the thing that you're not being told is that this isn't an area that black people just went to. It's the poor part of the city where migrants have always gone to. If you go to places like Handsworth, Lozells, Newtown, Alum Rock, these used to be very heavily Irish areas because the Irish came over in the late 19th, early 20th century. Then it became a more black area as people came in from the Caribbean. Then you had people from the Indian subcontinent coming in here. It's the place that people can afford to live. No one's ghettoizing for the sake of it. But
Mm.
as with previous generations, they had good trade union jobs that they could rely on, and that allowed an economic upward mobility, which meant they didn't end up lingering in these areas. And that has been destroyed by Robert Jenrick and Robert Jenrick's political forebears. He is the reason that they are poor, and yet he tries to exploit that for racist ends, and he can go fuck himself.
He can go fuck himself. Big facts. Oh, you're so fucking right, though. He can actually go fuck himself. Like Robert fucking Dick, generic, you fucking prick. He's such a prick. Like, and I really, really, really cannot stand. Sorry, just tell me I hit my step gun. I don't know how that's happened. But I really, really cannot stand. You're so right. The Tories, particularly, or just people in politics, using socially deprived places or relatively socially deprived places for their political football to score political points. What have you done for that city? What have you done for that town? You have utterly stripped it from the things that actually make it a city that or a town that thrives in the way that it rightfully should. And I fucking hate them constantly, repeatedly slamming Birmingham City Council. They accuse it of mismanagement, the insolvency, and the failure, but they don't see all of the things that have contributed to that. And you're so right; they have had a massive hand in doing that. And I don't want Birmingham to be used as this visual and symbolic backdrop in cultural narratives like the dirt in the street, the rubbish, the social disorder, like quote unquote urban decay. when they are the ones that have strolled into that city and have made the things, have,
Well,
have
that's the
made
thing.
have made the situation like that.
He doesn't care. He spent an
Doesn't
hour and a
care.
half here, and he decided because there's some economic deprivation caused by his policies, and seemingly he didn't see a white person, that all of a sudden he knows everything. He's an expert on the city and can use words like slum. You are fighting to try and become the prime minister of this country. You have
Mm.
some fucking respect, you piece of shit, right? Don't turn up in a city like you give a fuck about it, you little
Mm.
fucking Oxbridge wank. It disgusts me. The people of this city have to put up with so much shit from national
True.
government. These just out of touch, like
Mm.
private school Westminster twats turning up and lecturing us like they know the first fucking thing
Mm.
about living in this city. And notice that he went specifically to the area that everyone already knew was largely
Mm.
non-white. Because, like I say, when I was growing up there, in the early mid-90s, I knew that there were very few white people there. This is not a surprise. This is not a new thing that's been sprung upon people. Everyone already knew this, and he went there specifically for that purpose. He didn't, for instance, go to, I don't know, Harborne or Edgbaston, which are the white enclaves of the city. Which,
Mm.
by the way, you are far more likely to receive a harsh and let's say unfair reaction if you are a non-white person walking through those streets, because trust me, the police will be called on you, undoubtedly, because they all do the funny handshake in the club with the chief of the police and all the rest of it, right?
Mm.
Then if you're a white person walking through the street of Allen Rock, I guarantee you, any day of the week, the white people in this city are less integrated in many respects than the black people. I
I
assure
agree.
you of that, okay? I know as a person, even as a white person who doesn't necessarily dress very poshly or talk very poshly, the white people in those enclaves, in the places like Harborne or at the top end of Moseley in the posh area, these people are basically not Brummies for all intents and purposes.
Mm.
They've walled themselves off in their own little rich people area.
Mm.
They are the ones who are not integrating.
I
Trust me,
agree.
I have far more in common with the grandson of a Jamaican bus driver or whatever than I ever do with Lord Farquhar's son, who lives in Moseley. I guarantee you, any day. And Robert Jenrick would know that if he gave a shit about the city and came here and learned anything, instead of just coming here and, like I say, doing racist poverty safari for
Mm.
the benefit of, clicks on the internet.
Yeah, and like the mythologizing of Birmingham kind of erases the complexity of that city and the things that have gone into that city. Like, and you rightfully said it, the infrastructure decay that's as a result of deliberate political choices that the Tories have decided to do, and
Yeah.
the funding cuts and the decades of disinvestment and systemic inequalities. Like, you won't ever see that side of the
Well,
story because they refuse to show
yeah.
that side of the story.
No, exactly. It's kind of a cycle. It's partly racism and partly economics, and partly the kind of combination of those two things.
Mm.
Racism that people of color face, in terms of the fact that we know that it's harder for them to rent in areas that are more affluent because they receive, on average, I think it's like a 36% less positive feedback rate from people who are largely white, who are landlords, who are people who
Mm.
are renting. So black people and brown people find it much more difficult to access those kind of areas. They find it less easy to go to those kind of areas in the first place because, of course, they're poorer, because the lower paid jobs that used to exist that you could use as a sort of stable basis to build up kind of generational wealth and mobility are gone now. And so people find themselves in a generational loop of just being stuck in this same place. And even if Robert Jenrick or anyone else cared to do a genuine kind of like, let's make sure everywhere has this percentage of white people and this percentage of black people and this percentage of whatever, as a way of trying to integrate whatever
Mm.
integration even means in these people's words, you couldn't do that anyway because of another Tory policy, which is the absolute hollowing out of the council housing stock.
Yeah.
So the council couldn't implement that kind of policy because we don't have any fucking houses.
Hmm. Make it make sense. Or the houses are there, they're just inaccessible to the working people, to
Yeah.
people that actually deserve homes because they do work fucking hard. And that kind of like comes in quite nicely to my second question. Like the line, and I want to talk about identity politics. Like the line from the right is that you don't see colour, and it's not about colour, but that the individual person is what matters. Often the critique from the right towards the left is that the left often boxes people into categories. Like, you're black, how can you have this opinion? A right wing black person, you shouldn't be saying this, blah blah blah. Yeah, I think the right are falling under their own weight of contradictions. They are obsessed with identity politics and something they accuse the left of doing, and now Jenrick is judging Birmingham by the lack of white faces. Make it make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Look, we all know that every accusation with the right is a confession. Every time they try and throw something at us, it's always because they're trying to hide their own version of that thing. We've seen, obviously, from Zionists, the fact that they genuinely seem to think that all Jewish people should have one opinion about the state of Israel, and anyone who dissents from that is treated more anti-Semitically than often a Nazi will treat a Jew. You have Robert Jenrick with his literally in the same breath of saying, "I didn't see any white faces," as if that was a bad thing, and then saying, "But it's not about your race or your color or whatever." Well, why did you mention that then?
Exactly.
If it wasn't about that, why did you bother to mention that fact? Because, like, if I walk around an area and I don't see white people, I don't even really think about it. It doesn't register in my head because I don't care. I couldn't give two shits whether the person is white or black or brown or whatever. It doesn't bother me. I just walk along the street and I treat people as I want to be treated until they show me otherwise, right? That's the way you should act as a normal human being, rather than thinking, "Oh, there are no white people, I'm scared." Well, maybe if you lived in anywhere other than just a white area, I presume. Like, I presume he doesn't walk around Belgravia in London and think, "Well, I don't see any brown people around here at all. This is the most outrageous lack of integration I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Level the place." No, because it's rich people. Rich white people who went to private school who all think exactly the same. That kind of homogeneity is just fine in Robert Jenrick's eyes.
Yeah. Just the right integration. That's what they want,
Just
isn't
the
it?
white integration.
Just
yes.
sounds about white. Yeah, you're right. So I thank you, Kevin. That was great. We could talk about that all day. If you're enjoying the stream, then please like and subscribe. Just to remind viewers that we are 5 volunteers. We do not get paid for this work, but one day we would love for this to be our full-time job. So if you can, then consider becoming a supporter by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can become a monthly patron, or there is another link for a one-off donation. Of course, you can also become a YouTube member for just 99 pence. But don't put yourself out. We know that times are tough. All that sort of stuff. So sometimes a share, a comment, and all that sort of stuff goes a long way. We've got a great community, so I'm really grateful. On to our final story, though. The majority of the Sumud Flotilla activists have arrived home after being kidnapped in international waters by Israel for trying to bring aid to Gaza. Not everyone has been released, but the latest member of the flotilla, David Adler, co-general, coordinator of Progressive International, has just arrived home. Many activists gave their testimonies of their vile treatment by Israeli authorities, including Greta Thunberg. One of the deported activists who arrived at Istanbul airport on Saturday recounted shocking details of what he described as brutal assaults on some activists during their detention, telling reporters they dragged little Greta by her hair in front of her eyes, beat her and forced her to kiss the Israeli flag. They did everything imaginable to her as a warning to others. She's still a little kid. They made her suffer. Now, a state that's engaging in genocide is hardly surprising to us that they are also abusing activists for bringing aid to Gaza. But for the corporate media, who have been obsessed with treating Jewish people in the state of Israel as one in the same, will probably ignore this testimony from David Adler. This is David speaking to Zito, explaining that he was treated poorly because he is Jewish.
In Ashdod port, we were frog marched out, heads down, knees on our knees, and for basically a giant photo op for Ben Gvir, as one of the few Jews on the mission. They found me, asked me if I was Jewish, ripped me by the ear, threw me in front of the Israeli flag to sit away from the whole group that was sat, hundreds of us, on our knees and heads down, for Ben Gvir to show up and come yell at us in our face that we're terrorists. And so we were treated. So from that moment, we were strip searched and zip tied and blindfolded and sent to this detention camp without any kind of process. We were basically not allowed to speak to lawyers. Most people didn't speak to lawyers and would not speak to lawyers. We still haven't spoken to lawyers the whole time. We were disappeared into the Negev desert for 3 days without any confirmation from the US government that we were even alive. I don't like, speaking as a Jew, but like, it bears repeating, the anti-Semitism that we endured at the hands of the state of Israel was so wild. Like, it was, it's so important that we change the narrative on the idea that the state of Israel is some kind of birthright or land for diasporic Jews to come home to. We were treated like, obviously Palestinians are considered to be the most dangerous thing that they need to either deny or destroy. But an unfaithful Jew to this Netanyahu government is considered to be like, so threatening to them that we were given this special interrogation by Ben-Gvir and the other Jew that was with me in the cells, who was suffering from severe medication withdrawals, who was begging and begging and begging day in and day out for a medic, was denied the most basic access to that medic. I don't want to name him without him being able to name himself, but begging. I mean, you could hear his cries every single morning, day and night. You could hear his suffering, and they basically, the guards at this facility just said, yeah, in your dreams, we'll be with you.
So, will the media talk about how Israel specifically treated a Jewish man worse? Of course not. Kevin, there is a pattern here, isn't there? We've had Gideon Levy, we've had Naomi Klein, now David Adler. Like, Jewish leftists are demonized or erased for their politics. Is this the final hypocrisy of Zionism, that it persecutes Jewish people who refuse to dehumanize others? And if anti-Semitism means hostility towards Jewish people, how is Israel's treatment of Jewish dissenters not anti-Semitic?
Well, as we talked about with the first story, Israel sees these people as the wrong kind of Jew, which apparently they see as not anti-Semitic, even though it's about as anti-Semitic as you can possibly get. I've said this for a long time, and I think it remains absolutely true. There is no bigger threat, and I don't even know what to say, a kind of a thing holding back the Jewish people of the world than the Zionist entity of Israel. They are the biggest threat to Jewish people around the world. They make Jewish people's lives more difficult, they make them more dangerous, and ultimately they despise Jewish people. They will not only send Jewish people to go and fight and die for their political ends in Gaza and the West Bank, and would happily do so in Iran if they had even half the chance to be able to do so. But also, they make Jewish people's lives in the diaspora around the world much more difficult, and not sort of as a side quest, as it were, but deliberately, because what they want to do is gin up fear of anti-Semitism far and beyond the actual level of the problem in the first place, and secondly, they want Jewish people to feel like they are not welcome in the home countries in which they reside, so that they will go back and inflate the number of Jewish people in Israel in order to keep their majority in the country. Because again, this is just ethno-nationalism. This is how ethno-nationalism operates, right? It's hatred upon hatred. They'll find their enemies, generally speaking, Palestinians in this case, but each ethno-nationalism has a different composition, of course. And then eventually it'll sort of run out of those and begin to try and turn inwards, a famous Niemoller poem about first they came for the communists, etc., sort of outlines that really well. It's that the hatred is what inspires, right? So it has to be that they'll go after Group A, and then if they're done with Group A, they'll go after Group B and C and etc. Because there's always a kind of new group, both internally and externally. It's a part of fascism that they have to oppose. And yeah, if this were any other place in the world that was specifically sectioning off Jewish people and treating them more harshly, you'd hear nothing else in the rest of the media. But Israel is just apparently allowed to do it because they have carte blanche to do whatever the hell they like, because they've bought and paid for basically all of Western media and politicians to do their bidding. Again, not for some world domination JQ nonsense, just for Israel, just for the Zionist project and nothing more. Hang on, I've lost my train of thought there. What was the phrase I was going to look for? No, I've forgotten. Sorry.
Okay.
If it pops back into my head, I'll.
Yeah, just interject. But I think what I find the most frustrating is this constant conflation between the Israeli state and, Jewishness. Like,
Yes.
Jewish people are somehow always associated with the Israeli state, when that's not the case at all. And I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think the silence around Adler's testimony proves that Jewish identity only really matters to the media when it props up Israeli power?
Yeah, basically, yeah. If they can use it for that purpose, that's what they'll do, right? Even though we were told during the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn that they had to adopt a specific definition of anti-Semitism that said the conflation of the state of Israel with all Jewish people was anti-Semitic.
100%.
They adopted that as their thing, and since then, Now that Jeremy Corbyn's gone, all of a sudden the media now just don't care about that bit. That bit's fine. That bit apparently isn't anti-Semitism, even though it absolutely is, and makes Jewish people's lives more dangerous and harder around the world. But the point I was going to make, and I've remembered now, was that the criminality of this. It's not just that the morality of it is disgusting, it's the criminality. These people were abducted in international waters, in of itself a crime, basically an act of piracy at the high seas. Secondly, they were taken, again, without any kind of due process whatsoever to secret facilities, not given access to medical or legal help in any way whatsoever during their stay. They were treated very, very poorly, beaten, had all kinds of their human rights completely trampled on, and this was just ignored by the rest of the world. Although our Prime Minister didn't ignore it, because he was asked specifically about the treatment of British people at the hands of the Jewish state who had been abducted from the flotilla. And he said that was an internal Israeli affair.
Oh, fuck off!
Firstly, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
High seas, international piracy crime, not an
Literally.
internal issue. Secondly, these are still British citizens. No one is suggesting that a foreign country has to just give our citizens back if they've committed a crime, but they do have to be given process. I remember very, very vividly the way in which Miriam, I've forgotten her surname, in Iran, the woman that was arrested for spying, quote unquote, in
Oh,
Iran,
yes.
was treated very, very poorly. And the British state and media are up in arms about this. And she was treated with kid gloves by comparison. At no point was she dragged by the hair and forced to kiss any flags. At no point was she stripped naked and zip-tied and denied medical care. She was treated very, very well by comparison. Now, it's really galling to know how pathetic the British government are. That if you are abducted by this one particular state, it doesn't matter what they do to you, they will actively collude in that treatment. They will actively allow for and cover for your torture.
It's fucking ridiculous. Like, it makes zero sense. And this just proves that the Israeli state proves time and time again that you so badly do not want people to go into Gaza, to go into Palestine, to deliver aid, to report on what's happening there. Because the likelihood is now, correct me if I'm wrong, they will probably kill them. They will kill journalists that will go in there. They will kill aid workers that will go in there. Like, they do this. They have a track record of doing this utter bullshit. And then what's even more frustrating, like you said, is the British, just Britain in general, going, oh, but come on, like, two-state solution, two-state solution.
Nonsense. Like
it's stupid.
If the illegal taking of hostages by the Israeli state is just an internal Israeli affair, why isn't the taking of hostages by Hamas an internal Palestinian affair?
Well, exactly.
Surely that's the same thing, isn't it? If it doesn't matter about the legality of the taking of foreign citizens and the putting them in dark sites and potentially misusing them and denying them human rights, where's the problem? Why are you calling for the release of those hostages, but not your own citizens who are hostages?
But because I think because they pick and choose where they want to apply law, right? They pick and choose what battles they want to fight, and they pick and choose what they think is morally right and what's morally wrong. But what I find really, really fucking irritating is we know what is against the law, but now I'm like, does the law even matter at this point? Does international law hold any weight whatsoever? Does it matter that someone's on international waters? No, because apparently it's an internal Israeli affair. Like, it makes no sense.
No, we know that. Look, the International Criminal Court have 2 arrest warrants out for Ben Gvir and for Smotrich and for Benjamin Netanyahu, and yet they have travelled to the airspace of various signatories to the Rome Statute, who should have forced that plane to land and arrested the people they knew were on board, who were wanted international war criminal fugitives, and sent them to The Hague. That should have taken place, and it didn't. Because international law doesn't matter anymore. The International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, are basically like the Ofcom of the world.
I hate
They're
this.
pathetic. It's embarrassing. They have no way of enforcing their rulings because the leadership of the countries who are supposed to do that enforcing are bought and paid for cucks. of the
But I
Israeli
hate
state.
this. It feels so fucking dystopian. It just feels awful to think that we don't even have something that will hold these sorts of people to account. And that's what's really like, it enrages me inside that I don't even know how to articulate my anger. Like, it's just frustrating to think that we have this body that should be holding people to account. And yes, it's very much I'm just not going to look, or I'm just not going to see, or I'm just not going to look.
Well, it goes all the way down. It's not even legality. I mean,
No.
as a football fan myself, I found FIFA's actions this week especially disgusting. They were going to host a meeting at which they would vote on the expulsion of Israel from the qualification for the upcoming World Cup in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And they cancelled that and said that FIFA can't solve world problems. No, that is technically true. They can't. No one is expecting you to. Okay? When Russia invaded Ukraine, 2 days later, FIFA and UEFA cancelled both the international team and the participation of their domestic teams in European competition. 2 days after the invasion. Into the third year now of this particular leg of the 80-year-long genocidal campaign against the Palestinian people, FIFA are now like, what do you want us to do? Anything at all? No. Like, they're a joke. And basically, that's the attitude that the entire international community and the bodies that are there to try and govern, supposedly, the law that we're all supposed to live by. They've taken that approach of just like, Israel just gets sort of allowed to do whatever the hell it likes. It's pathetic. Root and branch, we need to detoxify all of Western culture from the pernicious financial influence of a genuinely evil sect of people called Zionists. Now, don't misunderstand me there. I don't mean Jewish people. Because there are many,
Zionists.
many superb Jewish people, in fact, the Jews Against Israel, the Jewish bloc, who literally lead every pro-Palestine march, the people who are the descendants of Holocaust survivors at those same marches, absolutely beautiful human beings who I love dearly. I don't mean those people. I mean Zionists,
Facts.
most of whom are Christians in North America. The vast majority, about 80% roughly, of world Zionists are Christians in North America. So I don't mean them. I mean that Zionists have used money from American political entities to buy and destroy huge amounts of the independent press and independent sovereign states. And those influences need to be rooted out completely and utterly.
What a shame it is as well for us to have to constantly say, constantly say,
Yeah.
I'm talking about Zionism, I'm not talking about Jewish people, because of how much it's being framed as though the Israeli
Exactly.
state represents Jewish people, or like Jewish
It's,
people are.
it's deeply annoying, but you do have to make that because they'll try
We
and take it
do.
out of context and say, oh, you mean just Jewish people. No, I don't.
Yeah. Oh, so you're being anti-Semitic? No, I'm actually talking about Zionism and how Zionism in and of itself is racist. And yeah, completely agree with you, Kevin. Let's go to our comments.
Let's.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. Yes, good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, plodding on as usual. Right, where to start? Let's start with the super chats. We've got quite a few. Michael, £2 super chat. Thanks, Michael. Left might struggle with tech, but defo not hair.
I love Michael. Love you, Michael.
Which, given the conversations we were having about hair prior to the show,
Well, I presume that wasn't about me.
it was definitely about you.
About you, Kevin.
The Good Globalist gifted 5 turn left memberships. Thank you. So Vicky's received 1. Matilda, John, Jojo,
Thanks.
and Mark as well. Steve gifted another 5. So that's gone to Marriage Causes Divorce, to Callie, to Nora, to Serp, and to Stu as well. Yeah, marriage does cause divorce. We've got this one from Oz, a £5 super chat. Agree with Jendik. It's utterly terrible that the white folk of Brummie don't want to live amongst people of colour.
True.
I love saying Gen Dick, Gen Prick, Gen Dick. It's fucking brilliant.
Exactly. When will the whites integrate with the rest of us?
What's interesting, well, on that point, I know you say that sort of tongue-in-cheek, but actually, this is a conversation me and Rob have been having while we're working on this documentary that you've still not heard anything about on the Wirral. Something that we noticed when we were out recently was the number of a lot of people, a lot of whites British people, we hear this argument, oh, well, our high street's gone. It's not our high street anymore. They've taken over our high street. And you walk down some of the high streets and they're all, the shops that are there, they're either bookies, charity shops, or in the case of where we were, there was a lot of international supermarkets. And we were trying to understand that, the high street was booming in the sense of the international supermarkets that were there. But all the other sort of local, quote unquote, British shops had closed. The market had closed because they opened a big Asda, which then took all the customers from the market. But one of the conversations that we had and that we're sort of trying to unpack, which I'm interested in your thoughts on this, is actually about, white people integrating, because it seems that people from other cultures and other backgrounds, they do community really, really well. I will never forget during Ramadan a number of years ago, I was really, really ill. I'd picked up a horrible tummy bug or food poisoning or something. I don't know what it was. And I had to move the mattress downstairs because I had a downstairs bathroom at the time. And I just had to sleep in the living room. Like, it was really, really bad. And after a couple of days, I got a knock on my door, and it was a group of people from the local mosque that were going out handing out like care packages to people in the local community for Ramadan. And, it always stuck with me because they really care about community. They put community first. And we see it in the Jewish communities as well. And we see it in communities that have got large populations of Black people or people from other ethnic minorities. But it feels like, white British communities, we don't have that same sense of community anymore. And part of that, I think, is what you were talking about, Kev. With the Shorestart centres, and a lot of the community centres were closed down. A lot of the youth clubs were closed down. But you hear some of the people at some of these marches talk about, oh, but there's nothing for white British lads anymore. There's nothing for white British lads. And it's easy to sort of point at that and say, well, that's just racism. But actually, it's true. Like, there is a problem with white communities not having that sense of community anymore. And I think that's where some of this racism stems from, because, they see other groups and other minorities having a real strong sense of community and family. But we seem to have lost that in white communities. And I think a lot of that comes from what we've talked about, which is, the lack of investment in local communities, particularly in areas that have, larger numbers of white communities.
I think we also need to understand why communities of colour tend to venture towards communities of colour. Like, they are a minority group with minority power, and you have obviously majority of the people in this country are white with majority power. So naturally, you will just go to the groups that represent you, because that is a safe space. Hence why it is not racist for Black people to have Black only spaces, or brown people to have brown only spaces, because that is their lived experience. They need a safe space, or a safer space to enter into. I don't think that there is such thing as a safe space, but safer spaces to enter into, so that they can exchange their lived experiences with one another. And that sort of community spirit is important and pivotal to communities of colour.
Yeah.
Particularly. So I think power comes into that conversation, and whether you are a minority or majority group. But yeah, I completely agree with you that maybe it's white people that aren't integrating.
But that is kind of the point that I was getting to, and Kev, I'll come back to you in a second. But that was kind of the point, that actually where we do see areas that have large, that are highly diverse, where we have people from a lot of different backgrounds, there does seem to be a pattern where it seems that everyone else seems to be able to get on really well together and actually, quote unquote, integrate. I hate using that word, but then it's the white communities that seem to be on the outside looking in, thinking, oh, they're not integrating. And it's like, but what do you mean by that? Do you mean they're not hanging around in the pub with you? They're not doing things with you, so they're not integrating? Because all these communities, they've got community centres. They're going out doing things for the local community. There is a sense of maybe it is white people that aren't integrating.
Well, actually, you mentioned the pub there, and there's a great example. A lot of the sort of talking points you hear from white people, certainly here in Birmingham, there's an area called Alum Rock, which is not far from Handsworth. It's very similar in the sense that it was previously a very heavily Irish area that is now Black and brown people. People from the Caribbean and people from the Indian subcontinent, largely, and their descendants. And the kind of pubs that used to exist there, they were like Irish social clubs and pubs and stuff that are basically closed down now because most of those people left. And so those spaces aren't being used by those people. And so it's not that they're taking over, it's that the white people left. What were you supposed to do? Like, just keep O'Shaughnessy's pub open forever and ever with two fucking people going into it? No.
But also on that, like, this is the thing where, you know, with the example of, you know, some of the places in the Wirral where me and Rob have been talking to people, where you've got a lot of these international supermarkets. You go in and they're really busy. And they're really busy with generally speaking non-whites or non-British born people. You know, they're speaking different languages. But what other communities are really, really good at doing is supporting people within their own community. You know, if the local person from their community opens a corner shop, they go and they spend their money there. Whereas if a British person sets up their own business and opens a shop, more often than not, we go to the Asda across the road. You know, people that set up. How many people do you know that set up their own businesses and they fail because nobody supports them? But when it's people in other communities that do that, the community comes around them and they support it.
Yeah, look, this is, in many respects, this is reheated racism that we've seen against various types of groups before, right? I mean, obviously, I've mentioned before, I'm from an Irish background. The same was said about these exact same areas when lots of Irish people came over, that they stuck to their own. They didn't go to our churches, they go to their own churches because they were of a different religion to us. They go to their own drinking establishments. They stick to their own. They only hire from within their own communities. It's the same bollocks. It's the same reheated shit. It's just that for matters of convenience, white people have accepted Irish people into the white people club now. Just like they've just accepted Ukrainians in because it's convenient.
Yeah. Oh. Am I frozen?
Yeah, I think it's Kevin that's frozen there.
Kev.
But yes, so we'll move on. Given Kevin's frozen, I'm not sure if it will stay like that or not, but we will see. Co-ops has said it was piracy and kidnap. What happened to the flotillas will go down in history.
Absolutely.
With 499 chat. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Coops.
Jim Speakers gifted 510 left memberships as
Thank
well.
You, Jim.
We've got Mustafa. We've
Thank
got
you.
Shiva. We've got B.
Thank
We've
you.
got Tommy, and we've got
you.
Matthew as well.
Thank you.
So thank you to all of you. Right, let's have a look at some of the comments that we have starred. Becca said anti-Semitism is on the rise and it's nothing to do with Palestinian flags. It's stuff like this in reference to the attack on
and it's exactly what I was saying as well, though, isn't it? It's the media framing. It's the way in which it's framed in the media, that they are the ones that enable this rise in anti-Semitism because they don't actually take real anti-Semitism seriously. They're just enablers of it. So that's the saddest part to it. So yeah, I agree.
James has said, and I just wanted to address this. James has said, anti-Semitism isn't on the rise, guys. It isn't. It's only on the rise if you define anti-Semitism as being against genocide of Semitic Palestinians. Firstly, I want to push back. Anti-Semitism absolutely is on the rise. We've just seen 2 people killed in a
do you think he's being sarcastic?
Like, you know, that is absolutely true. But as for the other point about if you define anti-Semitism as being against genocide, I don't think we're going to disagree that people are abusing the definition of anti-Semitism. The fact that people keep trying to conflate, and Kevin talked about this, and you've touched on it tonight, Sarah, as well. The fact that people keep trying to conflate the acts of the state of Israel with the Jewish population as a whole, the fact that people keep trying to argue that you're anti-Semitic if you're anti-Israeli, that in and of itself is absolutely anti-Semitic. But I do think it's wrong to say anti-Semitism isn't on the rise. It absolutely is. We have seen more cases of anti-Semitic attacks in the streets, whether it's people shouting abuse at people, whether it's physical attacks like the one that we saw in Manchester this last week. So
I find it so hard to believe that people. Sorry, with all due respect, James, like to James, I find it so hard to believe that people are actually being serious when they say this sort of stuff. So I'm kind of like, wait, are you actually? I had to do a double take. I was like, are you being serious? Like, are you actually saying that anti-Semitism is not on the rise? Like, it 100% is on the rise. And I think anyone who denies that is not taking it seriously enough.
But I think it's possible, right? It's possible to believe both things at the same time. You can acknowledge that anti-Semitism is on the rise, but also acknowledge that calling out a genocide and attacking the state of Israel or the actions of Netanyahu is not anti-Semitic. Like the two things can be true at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think there's a lot of people that feel that it's either one or the other. You're either anti-Semitic full stop because you support Palestine as well, or there's no such thing as anti-Semitism and nobody's being attacked. But actually, it is a mixture of both. So just I'd just maybe think a little bit about that view.
Yeah. Ow, my back. Yeah, I agree.
What have you done to your back? You okay?
It's just like seized up a little bit.
Michael Askew, he does have that X factor that threatens the right too. That's in reference
Who's
to
this
Zach.
to?
Zach.
Oh, Zach, yeah.
Yes.
Zach 100% is threatening them. Zach is 100% a threat to these people. No one will be talking about you if you're not a threat. Like, if you are a threat, they will be chatting about you and they'll be trying to tear you down. Look what they did to Corbyn. They tore him apart. And then people still to this day think that Corbyn is anti-Semitic, even though things have come out and reviews have been done and he wasn't. But Zach is doing something right. I think Zach is doing something that not other politicians are doing. Like bold politics, what a fucking smart move. Like this guy's so smart. And then on top of that, I keep seeing on my For You page, like this guy's on the streets asking people questions. Like he's literally like, do you know who said this and this policy? Yeah, well, it's Nigel Farage. Do you agree with that? They're like, no. It's like, shit. Like the penny drops for them. You have to go out there. But I will say, Twitter is a fucking minefield. I hate Twitter. I don't use it enough. I don't use it at all, really. And I'm glad I don't, because whenever I go on there, I regret it. The things that people were saying about Zach in relation to him changing his name back to his family name were fucking horrendous.
The thing is, right, and this kind of all sort of segues onto the other point, but so Dilson said she changed her name to sound white in reference to Kemi Badenoch. Now, Kemi Badenoch's actual name is Olukemi Olufunso Adegoke Badenoch. That's her full name, right? We've got Kevin back.
Kevin, I missed you. What?
Bear with me. Hang on. Nobody can hear him. Let me get him back in.
He just said his electric blew out or something.
Hello.
There we go. So welcome back. So Kemi Badenoch's full name, Olukemi Olufunto Adegoke Badenoch, right? That's her full name. And she, it's likely that Dilson said here, she changed her name to sound white. It is common for people with non-British sounding names to shorten their names or change their names in part to try and avoid ridicule and racism, right? But nobody's going out on Talk TV saying, oh, the leader of the Conservative Party, shocker, this is her real name. Kemi Badenoch's not really called Kemi, guys. Oh, nobody's doing that. And if anybody did do that, it would be rightfully called out for being a racist fucking hit piece.
Yeah.
But why? So why do they think it's all right to do with a Jewish man? Because he's the wrong kind of Jew,
exactly.
Right? And you know what? In terms of the threat that Zach is to the media, he's the only current, although it might change if Robert Jenrick wins, but he's the only current Jewish leader of a political party in the UK.
Is Robert Jenrick Jewish? I didn't know that.
Is he?
I'm going to double check now. I thought he was, but maybe he's not.
I don't know, but that you implied that he would be a second Jewish person.
Yeah, I think he's.
But does it not prove?
Yeah, he is. Well, his wife and children are Jewish, so maybe he's not. But no, his wife and excuse me, his wife and kids are Jewish, so he wouldn't be. But either way. Zach is a Jewish man. He's also a gay man, but he's also really, really pro-Palestinian. And that scares them because the media don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to handle a Jewish man in a position of power who is pro-Palestine, who speaks out against the genocide, because for so long they've been trying to have us believe that speaking out for Palestine makes you an anti-Semite. The fact that you're 3 times more likely to be booted out of the Labour Party for anti-Semitism if you're Jewish, right, is exactly the problem. Which is why when Zach went on Radio 4 the other day, he was held to a different standard as other politicians would be. And it's like you're attacking a Jewish man after a Jewish Mancunian, in the days after, and Owen Jones.
Hang on, you can't say Mancunian and man because those two things are mutually exclusive. Sure.
What, Mancunian and mug?
Surely.
But Owen Jones talked about this in the Bold Politics episode, which, by the way, drops earlier on Spotify. So if you want to watch it when it doesn't clash with us, you can watch it on Spotify earlier in the day. Just saying,
Spotify.
Spotify. But it's true. He like the people that were attacked in that synagogue the other day. They are literally like Zach had to ring his parents and make sure that his family was safe and that none of them had gone to the synagogue that day because he's from an area nearby.
But does it not show that, like, how, like, the normalization of anti-Semitism or anti-Semitic rhetoric in our everyday lives in the media, like, it is so normalized to say things that are anti-Semitic so that people don't people just aren't able to recognize it when it happens. Like, people wouldn't be able to point to Talk TV and say, hey, what you just did was incredibly anti-Semitic,
No.
because of how I think how it's downplayed, and how it's
This is
normalized.
why conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism is really fucking dangerous.
With Jewish
because it
Judaism.
completely undermines actual anti-Semitism to the point when we see examples of it, the same people, Darren fucking Grimes, will be on Twitter screaming and pointing the finger, accusing pro-Palestinian protesters of being anti-Semitic without even realizing the fact that he's just been involved in an anti-Semitic attack on the Jewish leader of a political party in the UK.
But to be fair, he was using the other hand under the table, so he
Well,
might have missed out on the details,
Very true.
Darren.
Anyway, we've got lots. We've got a few more to get through. So, on the topic of Gaza, Bloody Blah has said the Gaza genocide has shown that international law is basically unenforceable. The UN needs to be reformed, removing veto power by the Security Council and setting up a permanent peacekeeping army. Thoughts on that?
I agree with the fact that international law is basically unenforceable. It kind of goes back to what Kevin and I were talking about in the last story, that it's just this prop that's there that holds little to no weight at all whatsoever. You can't even hold people to account. But I would agree that the UN needs to be reformed. And I actually don't disagree with this. I don't disagree with this.
I think the UN needs to move out of America. If the American government can decide that, certain people don't get the clearance, certain people just aren't allowed in, well, fuck you then. We'll go somewhere that will allow it. You're either going to be an impartial observer of international protocol, or you could go fuck yourselves.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
I just want to go back to Robert Jenrick because Quentin's made a really good point. That vid that Jenrick made for GB News whining about litter in Birmingham only had whites in it. Like there wasn't any face in the video that he made about litter that wasn't white. Yes.
Well, hang on. Did he have his eyes closed then? Because he said he didn't see any white people.
But this is the point, right? Because it's a dog whistle. Of course it is. We know it's a dog whistle. You walk down the street and you see somebody with a turban, and immediately, or a lady in a burqa, and immediately, there isn't any bloody white people. It's like that video. Have you seen? I don't know if it was an interview. I don't know if it was a Vox Pop for like Politics Joe or somebody, where they're complaining about how you can't move for ethnic minorities in this area. Like they're just everywhere, and the camera just pans out to the local town centre that they're doing the interview in, and there's like hardly anyone about, and the only people that are about are white. It's giving that sort of energy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just doing it like he's trying to stir up racial hatred so that he could take over a dying political party. Thanks.
Cheers.
Yeah. Terry's shared an update. Ahmed, the kid with all the cats who posts a lot on Instagram, is still alive, thankfully. So for anyone that needs to know or that has been following Ahmed's story, that's just a good an update there. So thank you for that.
That's nice, but that's so white people. Like the cats are okay.
Well, no, he's saying the kid. No, he's saying the kid with all the cats. He's saying the kid with the cats is still alive.
Are the cats okay though? I do need to know about the cats.
I mean, I assume so. I don't know. But Ahmed is. Vicky says
cats.
The
Sorry.
most recent Flotilla interception, they were even further from Gaza shores. It seems like they don't really care how close they are to Gaza.
It was
If they
in
can get them, they'll get them.
international waters. Like, I literally, like, make it make sense. It was in international waters, and then when
Like, if you're gonna do genocide, why you're not gonna stop at piracy, are you?
no, you're not. You're not.
I mean, what next? A bit of subtle drug running?
Well, just on that
Tax
point,
fraud?
Flow Snakes pointed out, remember, by the letter of the law, it's only piracy if done by private vessels for private ends, just to preempt the has barrister talking points, you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, to those people, go fuck yourself with a rake.
To which people? The you don't know what you're talking about people?
Yeah, no, if you're a Hasbro dickhead who stumbles on this video, I hate you and I hope bad things happen to you. Yeah, no, I've said my piece. I'm good.
Can't add to that.
You don't need to. It's unaddableness.
Yeah.
And I endorse that message.
Michael, not a peep from our government about those who the UK from the UK who were kidnapped/abducted. Apparently, it was up to Israel to do whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, that's sort of the galling thing as a UK taxpayer, right? You pay your taxes to a government that you know will collude in your torture, up to and including rape, because that's a thing that the Israeli forces do to detainees.
Yeah.
And of course your murder, because we've had British citizens murdered, and the UK government went, eh. So, like, I mean, fuck them.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit angry since I came back. The power outages annoyed me.
I think it was
No,
generic.
it's fine. I mean, that's probably the electricity workers going on strike to add to your bins and.
No, it was definitely generic, because he was like, no, he's against the narrative. He's a white man in Birmingham. He must be shut down.
If the lights are off, you can't see the colour of the skin of the people you're talking to.
Exactly.
Oh dear me! Right, so I think that we're probably going to call it there. Just by the way, everyone, remember that we do now have an up and running Discord, and also if you're on Reddit, you can actually now use our. I mean, you could use it anyway, but you can use our. Is it a subreddit? Is that what it's called?
Okay, but if you're on Reddit, also get a fucking life.
What?
Who's on Reddit?
I have no idea. Somebody set it up, and I recently thought maybe we should expand our horizon.
Get a fucking life.
So it's
if you're on Reddit, have you thought about getting a girlfriend instead?
There are some hilarious.
There's lots of political conversations going on Reddit. We're at
and only 70% of them are very racist, so it's fine.
We're at r/turn left media. It's a subreddit. It was set up by one of our community and hasn't really had much postings in it. But if you are on Reddit and you want to post anything that might be of interest to viewers or what have you, then you can do that.
Or get some friends.
Or get some friends, as Kev says. There's also the link to the Discord is also been shared in the chat as well. Honestly, Kev, we are also on Facebook. If you're a boomer, we don't really use it.
I don't use Facebook.
But if you're over the age of about 60, we're on Facebook. And where else are we? Instagram.
Yeah, Insta, TikTok. I'm
Blue
also
Sky.
on TikTok. You want to drop me a follow?
Twitter for our sins. Still hanging on in there. We're all over the place. Point being is like, follow, subscribe, and all that shiz. Yes. Maybe don't admit to all the socials that you're on if Kevin's watching.
True.
Yeah. Thanks, Callum.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in tonight. It's been a bloody brilliant show. I actually quite like being the sandwich in the middle, you know, on a Wednesday. Like, I'm the best feeling.
You are.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. I actually really appreciate that. Callum, can you take this producer live thing off?
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
And what's happened is because Kevin, I just pretended to have gone because Kevin was booted by his electricity. It's removed him from the scene. So while you were just chatting there,
sorry. I'm actually
But you highlighted to our entire audience that I hadn't changed the screen before I had a chance to change it. I was about to press the button, but thanks for that, Sarah.
I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm back. I'm on Wednesdays now, guys. So tune in on Wednesdays and obviously Mondays and Fridays. But yeah, I'm here on Wednesdays. But thank you so much, Kevin. You've been so so bloody insightful and brilliant and great. I'm very grateful for you. Thank you. Sorry, I cut you off. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you to all of you for tuning in tonight. Just to let you know that we don't have a show this Friday. And some of the team will be attending the World Transformed. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you some content, including interviews from the event. But as ever, like, do remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, come to Discord, come to Instagram. Am I allowed to plug in the fact that I'm doing London Marathon? Thanks. I have done it now. So I did that on purpose so that Callum could say, yeah. So I'm doing London Marathon next year. And if you go to my TikTok, I have a donation link if you have the capacity to donate. But if you don't have the capacity, that's absolutely fine. I'm not trying to take from turn and left donations, but I'm also donating. I'm also trying to run for the Children's Society. So if you have anything to spare them, please do. Or just a share. That goes a long way. Anyway, that's enough plugging me in. Well, Transform this weekend. We will, of course, be back on Monday. So thank you so much. I'm Sarah Dallal. We'll see you then.